All right, so today we are greasing up the slip joint splines on my 1996 Jeep Cherokee here. Now, all throughout this video, I just want to point out real quick that I'm not really good with knowing the names of this type of stuff. I just know what it does and I know how to take it apart. The best way I can explain on what we are going to be greasing up today is these little splines on the end of your transfer case that goes to your drive shaft there. Those get dry over time, and as your suspension moves around, that needs to move there, and if it gets dry, you'll get a clunk and it'll just wear out faster. And I believe that's what's going on with my Jeep Cherokee here. Ever since I've bought it, when I slow down from like 60 to 0 or whatever, I pretty much always get a clunk in the back end. It almost feels like the whole entire axle is shifting. I don't think it is. I believe it's just that those splines are dry from lubrication and stuff. And I've seen a bunch of different people on the Jeep forums saying that they've greased it up and it's fixed their clunking issue. So hopefully it'll fix mine. If it's not, then it's probably something back there is loose. Not 100% sure. Also, I have noticed that ever since it gets warm, around 210, it always likes to clunk into gear after you like drive it on the highway, for example, from reverse to drive. It always clunks really hard into gear, neutral to reverse, it clunks, and so on. It never does it when it's cold, which I find kind of odd. Maybe that has something to do with that joint there, the splines. I could be wrong, but either way, I'm pretty certain they are dry on here, so I'm going to be lubricating them anyways. Now it's pretty simple to take apart. I've looked at a couple of write-ups on the forums, and it's just 4 8mm bolts, and then you could pop the drive shaft off, pop the little boot off, stick some grease in there, and then, well, put it back together. I'll be showing that today, so let's go ahead and bring this car here into the garage over there. I would do it outside, but as you can tell, it is, well, it's raining earlier, and it's going to be raining whenever I do this, so not going to do it in the rain. So let's go and bring it into the garage. All right, so I now have it into the garage, and first thing you want to do is go ahead and put a block behind your wheels. Just to show you guys, that's what I did here. I have a big one there, and then I have 2 on the other side. In this case, this is on a pretty level surface, so it's not a massive deal. But either way, I don't want this thing to roll back and run me over or roll out of the garage and hit something else. So that's very important, especially if you're doing it on an incline, because obviously once you take off your drive shaft, whole car is going to roll back. So there you go. So first thing we need to do is get under there. Well, after you block off the wheels, you want to get under there and go ahead and take off that CV boot, whatever you want to call it. It's like a, you know, one that you would see on a CV axle kind of. Now they use CV clamps, and we don't have a tool for that, so I'm just going to use probably some vice grips or something and try to get it off there, and then I'm probably just going to replace it with zip ties. Many people do that, and it seems to work just fine. So let's go and get under there. All right, we are now under the vehicle, and this is the CV boot thing that I'm talking about. Here's the transfer case, by the way, and then here's obviously the rear drive shaft. These CV clamps right here, they're a bit of a pain. This one I got off with some vice grips or channel locks, whatever you want to call them. I think these are channel locks right here. And I got that off. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it back on, but that's okay. I'll just replace it with a zip tie. And then this one right over here, that one's a bit bigger, so it's going to be more of a pain, but I'll figure a way out. The way I got this one off is that there's actually a little bit of a gap under right there, and I was able to fit the channel locks under there and kind of pry it up. That's what I'm probably going to do with this one, and then we should be able to maybe slip that boot off. I guess we'll see. All right, so I went ahead and just looked at a write-up on the Jeep forum, and I guess you don't have to take this one off here. I would have thought that you would have had to have taken this boot off to get to the splines easier to, of course, grease them, but I guess not. I guess they go a little bit farther out than the boot. So this isn't required to take off, so I'm not going to take it off. It's not worth it. This one is still on there perfectly fine. I tried to get it off, but I didn't damage it, so it doesn't really matter. Now we're going to go back here, and we are going to mark our drive shaft on the rear differential where it lines up. Also be a good idea to take photos. That's kind of what I'm going to do now. Now, as far as I can tell, I had some mixed results with this. Apparently this drive shaft is not balanced, but I don't really care if it is or isn't. I want to put it back the same orientation it was. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to put a mark here and then up here, just with a paint pen or something so it doesn't wipe off. So I guess let's go in and do that now. All right, so as you can see here, I got my drive shaft marked. Now from here, what you're going to do is you're going to take off these 4 8mm bolts. Now, I was actually pretty afraid last night that I was gonna maybe snap these, but I actually was able to crack them loose last night, no problem, none of them broke. I went ahead and just put some PB Blaster on there last night, just for extra measure. So let's go ahead and get our 8mm socket here. See here, this is 8mm. You can see that it fits on perfect. And let's go ahead and, I guess let's crack this one loose first. Let's see here, this is tightening. Let's go in. Oh yeah, I also need an extension. Let me get an extension real quick. All right, I have my extension here. Now I just do want to point out, if your bolts break while you're doing this, obviously I am not liable. I'm not the one working on your Jeep. I'm just doing a tutorial. So let's go ahead and take these off. There you go. And it's not a bad idea to replace the hardware while you're in here. I would do that, but my hardware actually looks pretty all right, and I'm pretty sure this rear end has been rebuilt before, so they probably replaced it while they were in here. Just to show you guys. Oh yeah, the threads actually look really good. Actually, there's some blue Loctite on there, or something. It kind of looks like blue Loctite. Almost looks purple, actually. Yeah, and apparently they didn't use that from factory, so someone must have been in here before. Okay, keep track of your bolts, by the way. I believe they're all the same, but I still do it either way. Let me go and take the top one off. I'm actually going to video that just in case one of them breaks or something, but if they don't break, I just won't include it in the video. Okay, so I'm now doing this video while I'm actually holding the drive shaft. It was really on there. The way I got it off is I tapped on these little caps here. Obviously, that's not ideal. I'd prefer to tap on the drive shaft itself instead of this, but even if I did somehow manage to ruin it, that's replaceable, so it's not a massive deal. So it's a drive shaft, but you know, that's a lot of money. Anyway, so that is off there. That's good. Now I'm gonna go ahead and move the camera best I can over here. All right, so now, yeah, you can see right here, this is the diff over here, or not the diff, the transfer case. And now what you're going to do, obviously once you get that end out, is you are going to simply pull just like that. And be careful because this is heavy. And there it is. And okay, so there is a little bit of grease on there, but that's not much. Okay, well, there you go. I now have a drive shaft in my hand. All right, I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna set the drive shaft over to the side. I'll give you guys a close look here. It's weird grease. I'm gonna wipe all that off. And then back here, let's just show you guys where it mounted. So it's down the marks there. Cool. All right, so the drive shaft, I went ahead and just cleaned the female side out. Actually used some brake parts cleaner. Probably not the best idea, but it's what I had around, and it definitely worked, so that's good. Also cleaned here. Now don't worry, I didn't spray the brake clean directly onto here because of the rubber boot. I actually put it onto a cloth here and then wiped it off. Now I do want to see. Okay, so there isn't. It's kind of odd. Okay, so I noticed on the female end there's like a little a notch bigger than all of the other ones. So I thought maybe it was supposed to go on a certain way on here, but apparently not, because these are all the same splines. Interesting. Anyways, there you go. So you just want to make sure all the grease is off here. I can't get that in the middle there. Well, maybe I'll try with the Q-tip. But anyways, there it is. From here, basically all you need to do is put some grease here and, well, reassemble it. All right, so here's the drive shaft. Just want to show you this end just in case maybe yours fell apart in a certain way and you just want to see how it goes together. There you go, it's pretty basic. One of these caps came off. I just slipped it back on. I don't think anything fell out. I don't even think there is anything to fall out. I could be wrong though. I really wish this was greasable. Now I would swap this out, but it's just more money and well, more of a pain because that is pretty rusted. It's still working smoothly, but I feel like it could use grease, but it's whatever. Over here, same thing pretty much. Just want to show you. And then here is that female end. You see down in there, and you can kind of see that notch right there. I don't know why that's there, but there isn't a place for it on the transfer case. Very interesting. Anyways, there you go. This is the grease I'm going to be using. Now, a lot of people say to use anti-seize, and other people say to use grease. It just really depends on who you talk to. In this case, I'm going to use grease. Worst case, I get in here in a year again, and I just replace it with anti-seize. But I'm going to be using this Sta-Lube, however you want to say it. It's made by CRC, Moly-Graph Extreme Pressure Multi-Purpose Grease. This wasn't a grease gun, but I just took it out. I'll get some here on the tip of my finger. Shove a whole bunch down in there and a whole bunch on the male end. I would use more than I guess what's preferable. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Basically, I'm just going to use a lot. I don't want this to wear out. And hopefully this will get rid of my issue. All right, so there is the male shaft right there, all greased up. And I have the drive shaft off to the side here. Now, what you're going to want to do is put your car in neutral. Obviously, make sure the tires are, chalked off so then it doesn't roll back or forward. And you're going to want to put in neutral. What that'll do is that'll make this be able to turn freely. So then whenever you put the drive shaft on here, you can turn it to line it up with the differential back there. So let's go ahead and get the drive shaft here. Be very careful with it. Don't want to hurt anything, of course. And I'm going to line it up here. Give it a second here. There you go. This might be a little bit hard to push on because of the this grease might be sealing it, and then it'll keep air back there. But if you're lucky, it won't do that, and it's actually kind of doing that. Well, that's okay. I think that's okay. Maybe if I push it. Yeah, it's kind of, see how it's coming out on its own? I think that's because of the air, but I think it just got most of it out. Anyways, then you're gonna come back here and line up your white marks. You might have to turn the drive shaft too while you're doing this. Which, yep, it's turning up there. You can see I could turn it because it is now neutral. And it looks like, I believe this is the side with white on it. Okay, so you're gonna want to point that towards side that you marked. And then should just be able to push it on there. And there it is. It's on there. So I'm gonna go through and make sure everything's lining up correctly, and then I'm gonna have to, sorry, you couldn't see that there, I apologize. I'm gonna make sure everything's, the way it's supposed to be. There it is. All right, so I have everything all put back together. For here, the little boot, I just couldn't get that CV axle, whatever you want to call it, that clamp back on. I was very close though, but I couldn't get it completely, so I just put a zip tie on there and it will work just fine. All that is just a boot to keep dirt and stuff out. Obviously, if you want this grease to last a long time, you really need that there. Otherwise, it doesn't really affect much. And then back here, you can see that is all put back together correctly. I went ahead and pushed on this, and there's no play at all, so it seems completely tight. I believe the factory torque spec here, from what I could find online, is I think 14 foot-pounds or maybe 17, right around there. After this clip, I'll just tell you guys right quick what the torque specs are. All right, so yeah, from what I could tell online, the torque specs for that is 14 foot-pounds. What I did, I didn't even torque them down. I just got the ratchet and I got them pretty tight. I doubt they're over torqued. They're probably at like 11, 12 foot-pounds. Basically, they are no tighter than what they were before. Even with all the rust there and stuff, they were not hard to get off at all, so I just put them back on, probably right around 14 foot-pounds. I just really don't want to break these bolts. I don't trust them. And if you do snap one, well, you're screwed. I mean, seriously, that's a pretty big deal. So I just left it the way it is. So there it is. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start it up and go for a test drive. I've always had a shake from the front end. I doubt that's because of this, but maybe it'll help us somehow. I'll see if anything has changed, basically. And I'll tell you guys if anything got worse. I doubt it would, but who knows. All right, so I went for a little drive down a gravel road by our house. I'll go for an actual drive probably on the highway later, but just going over some pretty gnarly bumps and stuff. I did that on purpose because that causes the rear suspension and of course the front suspension too to flex, and that will, if it clunks or anything, then that can indicate an issue with that spline there, but it had absolutely no issues. I gave it some torque when coming up the driveway. I kind of floored it, no clunking or anything. When I slammed on the brakes real hard, not to the point of them locking up, but to it slowing down pretty quickly, there was no more clunk then either, so that's pretty good. Of course, I'll see if that comes back. I'm probably going to let this, you know, let the grease be there for like a week until I publish this video just to see how it turned out, but so far there's no issues. It seems like I put it all back together correctly. Again, it's pretty darn straightforward. There's nothing much to it. So far so good. It seemed to have at least fixed a clunk, you know, when I slam on the brakes and then let off, so that's nice. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up all my tools, and I guess I'll see you guys in a week to tell you guys if I have any more issues. Just another thing, if you still have a clunk, you want to grease your front splines. You can see back there is the drive shaft, and then here is the front one. There is an actual Zerk fitting from factory, and you can fill that up. When I got the Jeep, it took a lot of grease, and actually I just pumped even more into it and it finally started coming out. What I would assume is a relief valve right there. So I'll wipe that off there, and then this one is finally full. This definitely wasn't a cause of my clunk up here because it still had grease in it. It just wasn't completely full. It's probably like 95% full. Anyways, remember to grease that, and then of course take off the rear one, grease that too. All right, so it is now a few days later, and today is actually Saturday. I went ahead and took off the drive shaft on Thursday, and then yesterday, which would be Friday, the day after I put on the drive shaft and lubed up those splines, I went ahead and took this thing on about a 2-hour trip, about 80 miles round trip. That was a lot of fun. I'm not going to get into details, but I had zero clunking at all. So typically, again, what was happening is when I would slow down and then press on the brakes, you know, that felt fine and stuff, but then when I let off the brakes, it would feel like the whole rear end is loose. It would make a really bad clunking sound. It just feels like the whole car was just moving. It wasn't good at all, and throughout that entire 2 hours I had none of that. It was perfect. I mean, it's the best I've ever felt it, and it also seemed to have somehow helped my death wobble, if you want to call it, or my shake. It didn't seem as bad, which I found kind of odd, but one thing's for sure, it definitely did fix the clunk whenever I stopped. Now, I don't know how long this is going to last. Again, some people said with the grease it would only last like a month, and with anti-seize it would last like 2 or 3 years. So if this issue comes back in, you know, a year or whenever, I'll just take off the drive shaft again and I will replace that grease with anti-seize. But I mean, I have to say I'm really impressed. I was not expecting that really to fix my issue, but it did, so I'm really happy with that. I also went ahead and got under there because I've been checking it after every drive, just, you know, making sure everything was all right. And I noticed there was a little bit of grease splashed up on like the catalytic converter, which that's not ideal, and it was kind of splashed all underneath the undercarriage. It wasn't much, so I just got under there and I went ahead and replaced that zip tie with a hose clamp, which I just did a couple minutes ago, and that was pretty easy too. So what I'm gonna do is come back in a couple of days and I'm gonna find out if this completely fixed my issue. Really excited to see the end results. All right, so it's now a little bit over a week later, actually 8 days. Yesterday I just forgot to actually do the video on this, and I gotta say I've had zero clunking issues. I'm actually very impressed that this actually fixed my issue. Again, the issue I was having is whenever you would press on the brakes and let off after a while, the whole rear end would just feel like it's literally like moving. It wasn't a good feeling at all. I was kind of scared that maybe something was loose back there or something, but no, in fact, it was just that those splines needed some grease. I've also noticed that whenever you would go over a bump in this thing, like a really bad bump, especially at low speeds, the back end would really clunk, it felt like, and the spline and lubing up those splines didn't fix the issue, but it definitely improved it a lot. It's not nearly as bad now. And also I've gone, I would say probably about 140 miles on this fixed. I have about 116 miles on the tank, and when I filled it up, that was about 30 miles into my trip, I guess. So around 140 miles I have on this fix, and I've had zero issues. So I'm actually pretty impressed. So if you have any of those issues, maybe clunking, or maybe if you don't have any issues, I would still recommend getting in there, taking off your drive shaft, putting a bunch of grease on those splines. It's not going to hurt anything. It's very easy to do. Just be careful not to break those bolts. I recommend putting some sort of a penetrating fluid on them at least the night before you do this, just so you know you can prevent them from breaking, because if that happens, man, you're screwed if they break. I'm sure you could drill it out and then re-tap it, but that'd be a lot of work, and I wouldn't really trust it, honestly. So yes, this definitely fixed my issue, and hopefully this was a good how-to video. Again, there's really no videos on YouTube how to do this. There's just a couple of write-ups on the forums, but decided to go ahead and just do a good thorough video. So hopefully if you guys like this video, go ahead and leave it a like if you would, and maybe even consider subscribing. I mainly do tech reviews, but every once in a while I do automotive related videos like this one, mainly on the Jeep, sometimes on our other trucks, the Mustang, the Plymouth, and so on. So if you want to see automotive videos or tech related videos, definitely be sure to subscribe. And yeah, there it is. So hope everybody enjoyed this video, and again, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye.